these early stages. See Danny Rowe just tucked in behind there. And this steady climb, it's not too much of a gradient, but it seems to be enough to cause a few at the back a problem or two. One of the Norwegian team, Gulliksen, just falling off at the back there. Amongst the Norwegian riders, Susanne Andersen, keep an eye on her, just 20 years of age, only turned 20 not that long ago. Already making her mark at the senior stage, but at the moment it's British who lead the way with Danny Rowe just tucked in behind. The Germans also following. And expect to get a warm round of applause and support as the British riders swoop round. Old roads here. See supporters on the bridge. There are plenty of people out. See the riders round, and crowds grow bigger as the race goes on. Riders have almost completed 10 kilometres. No sign at the moment of any of the strong Dutch contingent getting involved in the leading riders. They're all just holding back there. Just the Germans and the Brits. Now, small descent begins. Some respite for those who had to work pretty hard up the climbs. Give support for the British riders, but as you can see, support for the other nations. And they're on the descent now. It's West George Street. Soon they'll be passing through George Square. The first attack from the Germans, trying to stretch this field out, and some at the back are already struggling to keep up with the early push. It's another of those punchy climbs. Just a reminder that when the riders pass through George Square, they then head up towards Glasgow Cathedral, and that part of the course is considered the toughest climb in relation to the general city course. This course has notoriously favoured sprinters in the national level, except for that Commonwealth Games. The rain did for the men. Aberg here, another of those just finding the going a little tough. So far we're getting a bit of a leading group here. The riders strung out. This is the first early move. Already Charlotte Becker keeping pace with the leader, stringing out the riders here. And already we've got a leading group. At the moment, British rider, German rider, Dutch rider in that group. On. Those climbs at the moment are what have caused the group to stretch out. Moment, Anna Plitcher. Those trying to hold on at the back, and already in these early stages they are dropping riders off that group as they will come back towards Glasgow Green. Applause for the riders as they close in and complete that first lap. So far, everybody within touch. All the favourites are in that peloton. Voss is in there. De Breggen in there. Nicola Juniper doing the work for the British team. Weave round Glasgow Green and exit back into the city centre again for the second lap. 9 laps for the women. Lucinda Brand is the leading Dutch rider at the moment. She's an outside shout for this one. Some noises about her chances. All the talk about Voss and Van der Breggen, but Brand is in the chance as well. Swig of the drink for Danny Rowe, Nicola Juniper. A whoop from the crowd as the riders continue round Glasgow Green. And this is what will be the home straight. And they'll have the finishing line ahead. And at the moment, this is just the completion of lap 1. And the British team working well together. They fancy this one at the moment, leading it out and looking to set up and help Danny Rowe, who's third in from the front. And there's the first lap, confirmation of that first lap complete. Explanation again of the course as the riders complete that first lap, so they make their way from here, Greendyke Street, and then round Salt Market, and they move their way down Trongate and Argyle Street, and they go round the back of Glasgow Central Station, and that's the first real climb of each loop of the course. St Vincent Street, it's a steady one. It lasts slightly longer than a lot of the shorter ones. And since the first kilometre, Britain has been represented at the front of that group. Not able to get too much of a breakaway. Peloton staying in touch. No signs yet. Anything decisive. Affected too many of the riders, but some have found it tough at the back and have dropped off. See any of the favourites are in that sort of predicament. So now Alice Barnes leading the way for the British team, looking to take initiative on. A chat there between members of the German outfit, and they have Charlotte Becker in that team and Lisa Brenner. And as they go around, this is the second time gone around the course, the crowds are growing. They're picking up on the fact that a women's road race championship is taking place. So at the moment, the British team, headed by Nicola Juniper, has done a lot of work for the British riders so far at the front of that group. Looking behind her, looking for the British jerseys in there, and Alice Barnes is up there, as is Danny Rowe. And there's our first real attack we've seen to try and string everybody out. Nicola Juniper trying to open up the field. Riders away past Central Station, Glasgow Central Station, up St Vincent Street. As I said before, you saw the little burst there from Nicola Juniper to try and make those behind work a little harder. Hasn't really opened things up too much. Again, those at the back have found these little breaks a bit difficult to keep in contact with. That was a brief shot of Gloria Rodriguez Sanchez. And the Spanish side, group just falling off the pace a bit. You can see the orange there. Marianne Vos is in there. Big names. Marianne Vos, Bregan, Dutch riders. At the moment, we haven't seen much from the Italian team. Very talented Italian team. Includes Lisa Longo Borghini, Dana Cecchini, a two-time world champion, Giorgia Bronzini, who was the silver medalist last time. Now it's the Belgian team's turn to take things on, and as I speak, there's the response again. But all the riders tightly bunched together. And so far, nobody's been able to get away from the group, but a long way to go. Alice Barnes leading the way for Great Britain. See, there's the... See at the moment of the reigning world road champion, Chantal Blaak. Fabulous win in Norway last year. And a real team effort from the Dutch side, and she led the way, and then they couldn't catch her. She's in that peloton at the moment. About the jerseys a lot, but remember that the reigning world road race champion, the rainbow jersey. The story so far, that's Danny Rowe at the front of the peloton. Nobody able to lead out too far, get away. Over a third of the way through the second lap. 9-lap course for these riders, and as it stands, the main point so far, the British team have rotated the effort at the front of the peloton. And it's Alice Barnes this time leading the way, and for an attack from somebody else. The teams, they'll share the work at the front. It's the hardest place to be in the peloton, of course. See here, a little breakaway at the front of the peloton. We're trying to force one. Just see from that aerial shot. Stretched out. And another of the Polish riders. Wiadoma, who would have been one of the favourites for this race, Polish rider. Talented Polish rider, not taking part in the road race here. So the first push here from an Italian rider in second. And such a strong side they have. Marta Bastianelli. those climbs that take us up towards Kelvingrove Park, and people lining the streets there. And it's good to see well-behaved crowds lining the roads, cheering on the riders. Once again, Annika Kuzna, another of those who's just falling away at the back of the peloton. We haven't completed 2 laps yet, and that's interesting already that the powerful front group are already stretching out. Stretching away from the rest of the riders. These tight, narrow streets of Glasgow. Just looking for that real attack, that real breakaway. Hard to do on a course like this when such a technical course. Danny Rowe compared it to a criterium before this competition. The German in third at the moment. Trixie Worak doing the work for her team. She'll be looking to set things up for Lisa Brennau and Charlotte Becker, standout names from that German group. There's no doubt team members will do work to help others out. Even Marianne Vos said before this race yesterday that if she didn't win, she was hoping or will help, will do anything she can to help another Dutch rider win. Once again, group led by a British rider, taking it in turns, the British team so far. Alice Barnes heading things up at some times. Danny Rose always tucked herself in there, as has Nicola Juniper. And you can clearly see it's a real team effort from the British team. They are all bunched in the front of that leadership group. So this is the exit out of Kelvingrove Park. It's beautiful part of the city, Kelvin Street. Park Gate, Park Circus. Feature of this wonderful city. They'll make the way out of and back into town, down West George Street and eventually to George Square. And this is a descent now, a gentle descent. We'll should see a change in the leadership in this sort of stage of the race, where now the downhill for the work they did going uphill. Will break out of, as they have already, out of Kelvingrove Park and then Dock Street. And another problem already. Sarah Stonin, the Swedish team, with a problem there. So the chains come off. See already another team, technical team, helping out their rider. As I mentioned earlier, they are allowed to keep in contact with the teams in terms of just following them behind. No radio contact, that is not allowed. Here's the group again. On the right-hand side, you can see Danny Rowe just tucking in behind the German rider. Alice Barnes doing her work again at the front. So far it's been Nikki Juniper who's done a lot of the work for the British team at the front of the peloton. Down they go. West George Street. And this will be one of the busiest sections of the course as far as supporters are concerned. It's a busy part of town, this, one of the main tourist attractions of the city. A real city centre. And the riders weaving their way through town. And there they are into George Square, which has been taken over at the moment by the European Championships. Riders don't weave round George Square, they just go straight past it, past the Glasgow City Chambers. Grand building at the back of George Square. Lippert, one of the German riders now, chasing behind, and this is that climb that I mentioned earlier as being possibly one of the toughest of the course so far, and it's the part that takes them up towards Glasgow Cathedral, near the Glasgow Necropolis. Huge graveyard just above the cathedral. Once again, the Israeli riders struggling at the back. So far, this effort, the first real breakaway we've had of this race so far, and it's enough to cause a few of the riders already a few problems. Had a few casualties already in this race. Chantal Hoffmann has had to pull out. Laura Agnew-Pape, one of the Finnish riders, that won't help Lotta Lepisto's cause. And here, on your screen already, the first and real attack of the race so far. And we've got a breakaway group of 6 here. And the peloton hasn't responded, and this is the first part of the race where we've had a bit of a gap between the leaders and the peloton. First time we can say we had true leaders. You always knew when there was going to be a break that a Dutch rider would be part of that break. Just back there again. Sanne Cant, who was one of the riders who was tipped to do quite well in this race, and she's just not quite with it at the moment. That's the chasing group there. See, they're working hard to keep up. This could be Well, the first real decisive break of the race, and one that will really open things up for us. Sweep round into Glasgow Green again. They're eating up this course. I think this group now have realised that they've got a bit of a lead here, and if they work together, which is a strange thing to say considering the multinational nature of the group, but if they work together, they can open things up a little, but it's not much of a gap. Riders coming round. Attack that chasing group. Giorgia Bronzini is one of those names in that group. Silver medalist from last year. Attempt now to close the gap on them. I think they know on a course like this, if you allow a group to get away, it can be difficult to reel them in. Hear the cheer of the crowd as they complete, so they come round shortly to complete second lap. And they'll be closing on the 100-kilometre mark. Once again, 2 Italians, British rider, 2 Dutch riders in that leading group. 7 laps to go, 2 completed. Glasgow Green, music pumping, and the party continues.
Sophie Wright on the front for Great Britain. So Sophie Wright is the British rider who's in the breakaway. Two Italians, Elisa Longo Borghini and Soraya Paladin. Elisa Klein from Germany also in the leading group. And I think there is a rider from France, which might be Eugénie Duval, but I'm not sure. Information is a little bit sketchy, I must say. But anyway, they're racing through the centre of Glasgow on a circuit which, Chris Boardman, for the most part, I think for those who were here for the Commonwealth Games in 2014, may be vaguely familiar. It's similar streets to those used at the Commonwealths.
Well, as far as I can tell, it's an identical circuit, and people were quite disappointed at the time when they saw that it was a street circuit and thought, oh, is that really going to create a great championships? Well, it's very, very deceptive. We've got 14 and a bit K laps, 9 of them, as we know. There's 7 short climbs, and some of them well over 15% on this. Now, they're only a couple of 100 meters long, but they add up. There's 63 in total over the course of the race, which means that they will have climbed nearly 2,500 meters by the time they've finished.
So it's a deceptively tough course, actually, this one.
It's absolutely brutal, yeah. And we know that the British team said, we're going to try and race this from the gun. We're going to try and attack it from the gun. That's what we've seen. The Dutch seem to have a similar strategy, although they're not using their biggest names just yet.
Well, they've got plenty of them, haven't they? I mean, we look at the Dutch team. You're talking about some of the favourites for this race. The Dutch team is absolutely stacked with talent. The only top Dutch rider who's not here, we just saw Giorgia Bronzini from Italy on the front there, is actually Annemiek van Vleuten, who is second in the World Tour standings at the moment. But Marianne Vos is here, a multiple world and also Olympic champion. Chantal Black, the current world champion. Lucinda Brand, Floortje Mackaij, Stultens is here, Anna van der Breggen, the Olympic champion, Ellen van Dijk as well. Some of the other riders to just look out for, looking down the starting list here, Marta Bastianelli and Giorgia Bronzini from Italy, Elisa Longo Borghini as well, Charlotte Becker, Lisa Brennauer from Germany, who beat Katie Archibald last night in the individual pursuit on the track. Audrey Cordon-Rago is here from France, one of their top riders. Great Britain well represented. Elizabeth Banks, Alice Barnes. Alice Barnes will be one of the favoured British riders. Danny Christmas, Anna Henderson, Nikki Juniper, Abby May Parkinson, Danny Rowe, who'll be the team leader for Britain today, I'm sure, and Sophie Wright, who is the rider who we saw in the breakaway just moments ago. Among the others in the field, looking down the list, Anastasia Yakovenko of Russia has had a good season, and there are plenty of other riders, including Lotte Lepisto from Finland as well. Ireland represented in this race by one rider, Alice Sharp, and the hint of another breakaway threatening to go away, but we still have almost 96 kilometres remaining on the streets of Glasgow here in this women's road race.
A lot of teams wanting to break this up early on if they can. We've just seen attack after attack. I think with such a distance remaining that we won't see a lot of the bigger names for some time yet, but their teammates being used rather than to sit and set the pace on the front to get stuck in, to break this race up, to force the opposition to have to do the chasing and use up the troops defensively.
Well, Great Britain have certainly got the numbers, and in riders like Danny Rowe, they've got the talent at the business end of the race, but it's hard to see beyond the control that the Dutch are likely to exert on a race such as this when you look at the riders that they've got, the Dutch and the Italians with a very strong squad as well.
Sophie Wright, I think this is having another go. Clearly her instructions to the early part of the race is to get stuck in, see if you can break the field up. The terrain's quite good for it, not necessarily on these short ramps, but immediately over the top is a good time, just as everybody regroups and are pinned in place, and it's difficult for people to jump onto wheels.
Well, this course, the start-finish area based on Glasgow Green, but it does head out west, past the central station, all the way out past Kelvingrove Park and University Avenue, out to the West End, before slowly winding its way back into the centre of town via past Queen Street Station. Then not quite as far as Glasgow Cathedral before going down the High Street and heading back towards the Green once again.
Those 5 riders, they've only got a few seconds, but it's a significant lead. And we'll bring you the names when we get them. We're getting a lot of aerial shots and we get a lot of front-on shots, so it is quite difficult to identify the riders. I'm pretty certain that's Sophie White on the front here. Indeed, it is. So she's been tasked.
I can see Lisa Klein in this group away, in this breakaway there from Germany.
Yeah.
And also we've got Lucinda Brand on the right of your picture. 16 is
Pagliato
Nadia
too.
Quagliotto from Italy.
So not the biggest hitters, no disrespect to them. But hey, whoever gets away has an opportunity here.
France represented as well. That's Lisa Klein in the white jersey, the German rider. Lisa Klein, who was involved in the breakaway a few moments ago. And Wright certainly animating the race here and leading the breakaway. Quagliotto in the bright orange helmet. Just trying to get a look at the French woman who's just in behind the British rider on the front of this breakaway. Labous of France it is. Number 38, Juliette Labous.
So Brand of the Netherlands, they've had somebody in every move, at least one person so far.
Well, she was involved in the last breakaway, wasn't she, as well as Sabrina Stiltens as well. But Lucinda Brand, a strong rider in her own right, but just one of many in this Dutch lineup.
Been in every move so far.
Still a big main pack though here, and still a long way to go. There's the Irish rider, Alice Sharp there, near towards the front of the peloton. Lucinda Brand in the bright orange of the Netherlands, the 29-year-old, the Sunweb rider. She was the bronze medalist in the cyclocross this year for elite women, held in Valkenburg, and the silver medalist in the European Championships on 2 previous occasions. She is the Dutch national cyclocross champion. That's Lisa Brennauer on the front, on the right of your picture there, fresh from her gold medal ride. She's already got 2 medals from these European Championships this week, having taken the bronze in the team pursuit and the gold from the individual pursuit against Katie Archibald last night.
Well, you can see the versatility of some of these riders, can't you? Battering around the velodrome for events that last seconds and minutes, and then out on the roads for a few thousand feet of climbing over many hours.
So it's just 20 seconds the advantage for the little breakaway group of Klein, Quagliotto, Brand, Labous, and also Wright.
Yep, that is indeed Sophie Wright, who's been in both breakaways of note already today in the first 30 kilometres of this event. Serves you well in this event to stay in the first 30 because of all of these corners. There's 28 decent corners on the circuit. So I've added that up because it's the kind of geeky thing I do. 252 corners they have to cover, and you can see how it strings people out.
It's just the sort of thing I know I don't need to do, Chris, because I know that you will.
Yeah, that gap up to 22 seconds now, so it's meaningful. There is a long way to go, but it's a tough circuit to get a chase organised as well.
Do you remember this spot, Chris? I think this is more or less exactly the place where Geraint Thomas had a puncture towards the end of the men's road race in the Commonwealth Games when he was on his own in the lead. That agonising 20 seconds or so while he was waiting for a wheel replacement. Fortunately for him,
it's Park Quadrant, I think.
Yeah, he was able to get back on, still with an advantage, and he went on to take the gold medal. Of course, he's gone on to do 1 or 2 things as well since then. But they'll be glad it's not raining as well, do you not think, with those cobbles?
Yeah, we've got Pavé, we've got Buchanan Street, which is usually pedestrianised, which is very, very smooth as well. So dry conditions really advantageous.
We are down towards the back of the peloton there. This is Paladin of Italy.
We've seen a lot of riders already distance on lap 1. We had 10 riders out of the back. And this break's working well together.
Yeah, Lisa Klein is keen to press on here. It's interesting to note as well the big teams, the teams with multiple options represented here.
Yeah. And I think you'll find that some of them will start to sit on in the later stages, because they're not the better sprinters, the better climbers. They're the ones that have been tasked with watching the early moves. So let's see if the harmony sticks. We may see some attacking come if their lead goes out. And having just seen the shape of the peloton, I think it may very well do, because everybody was looking up and saying, hey, we've got somebody, all the major countries represented here are saying, well, we've got somebody in the break, we're not chasing it. And this lead will just extend for some time, I think.
Yeah, Lisa Klein there from Germany, really pressing on at the front. Her form's really good at the moment. She was second in the recent Bini Ladies Tour, a stage race. She took a stage as well in a race called the Festival Elsie Jacobs this year. And she was third in Ghent-Wevelgem in the spring.
That's a slimmed down peloton. You can almost call it a large front group at the moment, and nobody wants to chase. You can see the jerseys of the Dutch, the Germans, the French, Italian, all there represented, just watching to counter anybody who wants to do anything. The Dutch setting just a discouraging pace, I think you would call this.
Good number of these riders were on the roads of London a week ago in the Classique, which we covered on the BBC. They will have just stayed on these shores, headed up to Glasgow here. We have the time trial coming up on Wednesday for the women and for the men as well. Normally the men's and women's road races on the same weekend, often on the same day, but separated by a week. The road closures for the road race course on Sunday, on consecutive Sundays here.
So the breakaway, the lead builds, moving towards a minute. 43 seconds we've just seen in this advantage they have in this European road race. And they've been on the road for just over an hour now. So here you get a good idea. This camera gives you just an idea of just how steep some of these short climbs are.
Well, this was a great course for Lizzie Armitstead, as was Lizzie Deignan now, wasn't it, for those Commonwealth Games? And she used it to great effect 4 years ago.
I could be wrong. I think this might be Montrose Street. It's very hard to get your bearings, because there's several nasty little ramps like this all over in 20-25 seconds, but they do so many of them, it really is going to add up.
Well, there's the festival setting in the centre of Glasgow.
See that flat-fronted peloton there, telling you that nobody is taking up the chase at the moment as the kilometres tick away. Everything calming down, isn't it, now? There's a move up the road. 54 seconds, slowly moving away, aren't they?
Yeah, the Belgians, though, are coming towards the front now, because they don't have anyone where they would like at the front of the race. Just, I think I saw Abby May Parkinson there, the most prominent of the British riders in that group. And 90 kilometres remaining in this women's road race. Short, sharp uphill efforts. Relentlessly undulating this course throughout Glasgow. But the breakaway group's advantage is steadily increasing. And if you've just joined our coverage, Sophie Wright for Great Britain is in that group. Juliette Babous of France, Lucinda Brand from the Netherlands, Nadia Quagliotto from Italy, Lisa Klein of Germany. This is the front of the peloton that we're looking at now, but no chasing required for most of the big teams. They're represented. Belgium, though, don't have anyone at the front of the race.
Well, they're in a difficult position now, because if they use the troops to do the chasing, then they haven't got them to do the attacking. They leave themselves exposed.
Here's Marianne Vos. Marianne Vos was the European champion last year. Been seeing her racing in a white jersey. Just pipped on the Mall at the end of the race last week, the Classique. It was a tremendous sprint, but Marianne Vos just losing out on the line.
Danny Rowe there as well, both happy to sit back at the early stages of this race. It's going to be about 3.5 hours long, so they're well into it, but you normally have this surge of speed at the start, something gets established, then there's a lull and it picks up again towards the end. All these riders well experienced and know the pattern. Look at these extreme nature of some of these bends. You can see how it does string things out despite the roads being wide. And if you're at the back, you've had to slow and then re-accelerate, and it takes its toll.
You're either slowing down and re-accelerating or turning and then climbing. Germany just controlling the front of the peloton. They've got plenty of experience there. Trixie Worrack among their number, real evergreen figure of the women's peloton.
Bit of feeding going on.
Well, that is Worrack there, just taking a drink.
I always take the opportunity. Little gel sachets are very easy to get down. 60, 70 grams of carbohydrate in one shot. That's about the amount you need per hour. Just keeping on top of the fuel supplies.
Labous, by the way, the Frenchwoman who's in the breakaway, if you're just wondering about her, she was 7th overall in the Tour de Yorkshire earlier this year. She races for Sunweb as well in the women's peloton in the World Tour. Haven't seen or heard how far the breakaway are in front for just a little while now.
I can have a guess for you.
Yeah, we'll have that information as soon as we can, unless
I'm going to say
Chris stops his little stopwatch and
round
they
about
go around this
10.
corner. Yeah, Lisa Klein bringing up the rear of that breakaway group. Lucinda Brand there with the number 3 on her back. Marianne Vos, Chantal Black, the world champion, Lucinda Brand, Floortje Mackaij, Sabrina Stultens, Anna van der Breggen, Ellen van Dijk and Lorena Wiebes. That is a really strong lineup for the Dutch, and no Annemiek van Vleuten, everyone else is there. Danny Rowe there just taking some food on board towards the front of the main group, and saw a shot of Marianne Vos there as well. Van der Breggen and Vos and Black in particular, so many cards that the Dutch could play. Italy as well with a number of riders who will fancy their chances. But Britain numerically strong as well here in this women's road race with a full complement of riders. And certainly the plan was for them to be as active as possible in any breakaways which went away.
I think this is pretty much mission accomplished for them. They have no responsibility to do any of the chasing.
Which is a good thing for the likes of Danny Rowe, isn't it? Because she won't be using any teammates up, doing any hard chasing at this moment in time, with Britain well represented.
Not a known climber, Danny Rowe, but she can stick with the best, certainly on ramps like this, and she's got a handy gallop at the end of it. Did come down to a small group sprint. I was seeing her a few years ago in the Tour de Yorkshire, and really feisty performance from her, saying with Lizzie Deignan.
Yeah, Danny Rowe's had a really good year with top 3 overall finishes in the Tour de Yorkshire and the OVO Women's Tour this year. The excellent stage races hosted on these shores. And the Classique, the one-day race last week, the richest race in the history of women's cycling. And they have pay parity as well in Ride London, Prudential Ride London. €100,000 prize money. Lisa Brennauer just having a quick bite as they ride along. A couple of the Norwegian riders up towards the front. I think it may have been Emily Moberg we saw. Norway with 4 riders in the race. Suzanne Anderson as well.
So look, the clock's ticking on there. I said, what, about 1:10? Oh, I'm not going to be far off here.
You're not actually. Here they come.
Oh, look at that. I'm going to be about 5 seconds out here.
This is way out. Between 5 and 10 seconds out.
You might need to trade me in. Well, that was before, of course. When I called it was slightly earlier, so at that time I think you'll find it was deadly accurate.
That's what made the difference. Slovenia with 2 riders at the front of the peloton, but certainly not making any inroads at the moment. Slovenia represented by Polona Batagel, Spela Kern, Ursa Pintar and Eugenia Bujak. So they've got a solid lineup, Slovenia. Great to see such a spread of nations potentially competitive in these sort of events, but the Dutch have got the strongest team. Italy not far behind them on paper. It's looking as though the two of the riders in the breakaway are not actually working at the moment. Lucinda Brand and Quagliotto from Italy just sitting at the back of that breakaway group now. That's not good for the future of these 5 being away.
Well, their job, unfortunately, their job was not to create a breakaway, it was to monitor and police. So for them to have a chance of winning, if on the utter outside chance this was to succeed, then they have to sit on. Their team riders, their top riders are behind. They're having a conversation now, but this is all about riding for your country rather than for yourself, and their best chance for the country is to sit and police, mark everything, stay fresh to do that, and if you did come to the end, you'd be the one who'd likely to win.
This is the pedestrianised road you were talking about with a very smooth surface, so again it's handy that it's dry, I think.
Lots of handshaking going on here. Nobody's happy.
Lisa
Nobody's
Klein's
working.
having a real go at Quagliotto.
Well, nobody wants to do any of the work here, so that's it. This is what breaks up the brakes, if that makes any sense. The front group here, they worked well to get away, and then once it was established, they went right team orders, and there's just not enough people here to carry 2 passengers. 1 perhaps, but not 2. This could be the end of it.
Let's look at this here. Watch Lisa Klein there, making her feelings known. The Canyon SRAM rider. The German clearly unhappy with a couple of those in the breakaway, including Lucinda Brand from the Netherlands, and also Nadia Quagliotto.
Well, they all seem to be just tapping through at the moment. I wonder if she knows those plasters on her leg. The strapping there is colour coordinated with the frame. Just a passing observation.
I'm sure it's all part of the overall look and the plan for Lisa Klein. There's Labousse of France, Juliette Labousse. Sophie Wright just going through your picture. Quagliotto, not necessarily one of the best known riders in the women's peloton, but a very solid rider nonetheless. She rode and finished in the Giro Rosa, the women's Tour of Italy, and she finished in the top half dozen in the Italian National Road Racing Championship. And Lisa Klein,
Oh, we're just seeing...
is going to chase after Sophie Wright.
Yeah, Sophie Wright just injected some pace there, and they look behind, go, well, I'm not following that wheel, and suddenly there's a gap. And of course, for several of the riders here, their job is to make sure nobody escapes. Not that this break succeeds, but just make sure nobody escapes without us being represented. Or if that was the case, then the responsibility to chase would shift. All the big teams want to be on the offensive, not defensive at this stage in the race. Kilometres ticking away, just 83 to go now. Good course for handing up a bottle. Don't need to carry lots of fuel. You can pick it up on a circuit like this frequently.
Back with the main field, being policed by the British team, among others. There's Marianne Vos. She won't worry about momentarily being at the back. That's Lisa Longo
helping
Borghini.
a teammate who's dropped the chain.
Lisa Longo Borghini there, running repairs while riding along.
Yeah. Oh, just about got it going again.
Yeah,
there.
nicely done. Didn't need to dismount, and then just going past her, Rotem Grafinovic from Israel, at the rear end of the peloton. But Longo Borghini and Marianne Vos
You're not actually
are
allowed
there
to
of
do
their
that.
choosing at the moment. They won't be there for long if they decide to move forward.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. You can be penalised for pushing another rider, particularly from another team. Hopefully the judges will see it as an act of camaraderie. But riders have actually changed equipment before now between teams and been disqualified in recent times as well.
we saw that, didn't we, in one of the Grand Tours in recent years. One of the Australian riders, I think Simon Clark, was given a wheel, maybe even by Richie Port. I'm not sure whether it was Port involved, but I'm sure it was Simon Clark, was given a wheel, and they were penalised for it.
Yeah, it's no changing of equipment between teams.
We're not
you
getting
can
any.
stop and give a wheel of your own team or even a bike, but not with another team.
1:10 is the gap. From
Yeah, well, they stalled, didn't they? The breakaway decided to stop riding and squabble for a while. They seem to have maybe got it back together a little bit now, tapping through at least.
Well, 3 of the riders are keen. Quagliotto, the 21-year-old Italian, still content to just sit in towards the back of the group. That's Lucinda Brand of the Netherlands bringing up the rear.
Sophie Wright needs to be careful here. It's great to see the team getting stuck in right at the start of this race, making sure they're present in every breakaway. But if you've got a lot of people not working, sitting on the front and driving it, you're not going to have anything left once it does really kick off, which negates the need or the point of being in the break in the first place. So sometimes you've got to know when to let it go, abandon.
Sophie Wright's a really promising young rider. She's still just 19 years of age. Sophie Wright, the British rider in the breakaway. She's a mountain bike rider as well, and she was Britain's first ever junior female European mountain bike champion. That was 2 years ago. But she's proving to be pretty good on the road as well. Really making her mark in the British Road Series. There's Audrey Cordon. Shot of Audrey Cordon there, one of the Wiggle High Five riders, as her day job. Sophie Wright looking good at the front of the breakaway group here, looking strong and keeping things moving along.
Those little climbs, half a minute in length, will add up. They will take their toll. Probably about an hour from now, we'll really see it start to show in how people are riding.
Still the same 2 riders sitting at the back. I don't think they're going to get any help at all from the Italian or the Dutch woman in the back of this group. So Labous of France, Wright of Great Britain, Labous of France and Klein of Germany, the only 3 who are vaguely interested in keeping this moving. None more so than Wright, it would seem, is she's doing an awful lot on the front of this breakaway group. Not getting much help.
Well, she could do with sitting up, actually, because there's just no benefit here of just towing everybody along, doing all the work, spending all the energy, and then if there is a counter-attack, you're of no use later in the race. So even if the breakaway failed, better to let it fail, I think, than use all your energy up. It's not even a slim chance, it's none, actually, if you ride like this. And it may also bluff them into start working again, and I mean that is the ultimate aim, but if you can't pull that off, then it's best to abandon.
Labous in the middle of your picture, just coming to the front. Sophie Wright just spinning a very low gear, staying firmly rooted in the saddle. Still 80 kilometres remaining in this women's road race. And the riders out at the...
I think we're up by the top end of the course now, around
the western end of the
Kelvin
course.
Grove Park area. It's very pretty, but very twisty as well.
Yeah, quite a technical part of the course.
Sophie Wright slipping off the front again here. And I think being allowed to do so. by the French rider, because nobody's working, so you either got to go past me and move forward, or Sophie Wright is going to be allowed to ride away. Now, I don't think she knows, actually, that now she does. Quick look over the shoulder. And behind, nobody wants to chase. It's quite an unusual situation. Can't every single rider there is under team orders, or might just be that there's too many passengers, and we've just been talking about playing brinkmanship, that the other riders are playing it, and Sophie Wright is the beneficiary. Got about a 5-second gap now. If she chose to press it home, I think they'd let her do it. In fact, they've let her ride away now.
Yeah. The other thing, just to note here, that because obviously these riders race for professional teams for the rest of the year, Labousse of France is actually a teammate, normally, of Lucinda Brand. The pair of them both race for the Sunweb team, so they'll know each other pretty well. They're normally racing alongside each other, but decidedly different interests today.
Well, I'm not quite sure. I don't think that the people...
Oh, Lucinda Brand's having a
go.
little... Oh, no, she was...
I think think she might have been thinking about attacking there. Somebody in the middle of the road just missed him.
Well, that just halted her effort there. It looked to me as if she was accelerating.
Well, she really needs to get up to... unless she's just warning this person off for standing on the road. No. I don't know what the idea was there. She could clearly see him.
What a bizarre incident, but thankfully no collision and no damage done.
It's a bizarre pattern at the moment, because their job, if their job are on team orders to mark things, well, they've just let one rider go up the road unattended, and so they're not fulfilling that role.
They're just over 50 kilometres into this race.
So Sophie Wright now can legitimately sit on the front and work away, because she is out there alone. It's a long shot, but now at least it is a viable one. So Pete Kenyuk in this position, Commonwealth Games, out there all day on his own.
I think they're up around Park Quadrant, Park Terrace, Park Gate, in the Kelvin Grove Park area. But they'll be heading back towards the city centre. A little bit of respite here for a few seconds.
Well, they're just trapped, aren't they? If you're not going to work, we can't keep going. We can't keep working, because that's pointless. So they're all just trapped, waiting for the peloton to come back. We've had no time gaps for some considerable period now, but
frustrating for Lisa Klein, who just wants to get on with it. She wants to get in an attack that will have a little go.
I mean, even just to attack each other until you break it up, that would be something. But this is just a bit of a pointless exercise.
Yeah, something of a holding pattern. But good to see the advantage that Sophie Wright has managed to eke out, because of course now she's at the front on her own. She won't be soft-pedaling at all at any moment. This is the peloton, the main group of riders. We see Trixie Worrack from Germany, third in that line. But most of the big favourites just tucked in the peloton.
Well, you can bet this will blow to pieces in the last 2 laps of this race. But everybody knows if you go now, it's just too far from home. Lots of good riders to chase. The gaps are going to be small because the climbs are small, and won't allow you to leverage much of an advantage. So it's got to happen late in the race, but it will be explosive.
Still a big pack out there, but as Chris was saying, and as you can see, a long way to go in this women's road race. Well, a few of the riders actually have appeared on the track in the last couple of days and now out on the road. Mentioned Lisa Brennauer before, one of them. Maria Giulia Confalonieri is another one who's out there for Italy. The rider at the back there is Tetiana Ryabchenko of Ukraine, number 104.
So we're just hearing, I think, that we had a 20-second advantage, so it's not huge as we see the counters come.
Yeah, Lucinda Brand from the Netherlands, having sat on for as long as we've been watching the breakaway group, and she looked as if she was about to make an attack a couple of minutes ago and was stalled by a spectator standing in the middle of the road, but now this time she's picked a clearer passage of asphalt, and away she goes. And Lisa Klein will lead the chase, but Lucinda Brand is going to try and close the gap to Sophie Wright of Great Britain, who leads this race, even though we haven't seen her for a few minutes. She's actually at the front. This is the second group, the first chase group now.
Yeah, the tables are turned a little bit now. Labosque who can sit on legitimately and say, well, you chase it then. If you need to get it back, if you're under team orders, I'll sit on you while you do it.
So Lucinda Brand leads the chase of Sophie Wright. Lisa Klein is closing the gap to Lucinda Brand. Juliette Labousse is just off the back of Klein's wheel, and bringing up the rear, Nadia Quagliotto of Italy. A couple of riders having a dig on the front of the peloton we're hearing as well, so hopefully we'll see that shortly. Lucinda Brand and Lisa Klein just having a little chat. But
I think
Brand
the
there
chat is a nice way to put it.
Yeah, Brand just attacking for the second time in the last few minutes.
Well, they should decide that we should work together if we're here to police. Brand's not finished.
1 minute and 30 seconds the advantage from the front of the race, back to the peloton. But Brand, we've been talking about Marianne Vos and Anna van der Breggen, and rightly so, they are the great champions of Dutch cycling, but who are in this race. But Lucinda Brand is a really good rider in her own right, and she's a three-time stage winner in the Women's Giro. She won the Grand Prix of Plouay 4 years. She's also a winner of the Het Nieuwsblad race, one of the spring classic races. She won that last year as well, and twice the Dutch national road racing champion. So Lucinda Brand, very strong and dangerous rider in a race like this.
Well, she is, but at the moment she's caught between a rock and a hard place. She was here to police, hasn't fulfilled that role, as we see.
One of the Slovenian riders
slipped off the front of the peloton. Nobody looking too worried.
Looks like is it a Belgian rider chasing her? I think it might be. No indication yet who it is off the front of the peloton.
Well, just been allowed to slip away there. Not in a dissimilar fashion to Sophie Wright, actually. Just nobody interested in holding the wheels just yet.
We haven't seen any pictures of Sophie Wright for a little while, who is actually leading this race, the British rider.
The nagging feeling we haven't got enough camera bites to cover this race if it breaks up.
Gathering there's a third rider as well who may be off the front of the peloton. It certainly looks like two from where we're looking.
Not a bad gap. About 13% climb, you just got a glimpse at the side there.
Trying to have a look who that is. I think it's Urša Pintar of Slovenia, who is the confirmation, just off the front of the peloton.
So she was sitting having to chase it down. She may as well be doing it on her own. Peloton not worried at all. These four haven't made their mind up whether they're going back or going forwards, and the peloton hasn't decided whether it's chasing them or not.
So Sophie Wright, I think, is only about 10 seconds or so in front of this group, but then they are but 2 minutes ahead of the peloton.
Nobody's playing at the moment. They really have stalled, haven't they?
But Lucinda Brand is either hanging on at the back or attacking them.
Yeah.
So here's the front of the race. First sighting of the race leader, Sophie Wright of Great Britain, the teenager. Mountain bike rider really starting to make her mark in road cycling as well. And well, everyone's certainly going to know she was in this race today. Britain were keen to make sure they were represented in whatever happens during the race.
I'd say that's more than 10 seconds.
Yeah. 10 seconds was the time gap we were just hearing in our ears, but this is the first group behind Sophie Wright. Klein, Labousse, Quagliotto and Brand.
It's coming around Glasgow Green. 73.5 Ks to go. Moving quickly towards half distance, so there's no way that's 10 seconds. It's considerably more than that. It's a pretty stale time check.
Not a lot going on though, is there really, among those four at the moment?
Well, there's only one rider in the race who is actually racing. The others just haven't made their mind up at any stage at the moment. Everybody, I think maybe the course has got people worried. They can see that if I do get tired, gaps are going to open up fast. I need to keep my powder dry for that last hour of racing.
Cumulatively, this course can sort the field out to a large degree. Well, there's the gap visually.
Yeah, we do get it foreshortened, don't we? So I would say in the region of 20 seconds here. If not more, actually. But Klein
this is
going
Pintar,
after it.
Ursula Pintar, who's in front of the peloton. There's the main field, marshalled by Great Britain.
It's more an observation than keeping it in check, isn't it?
Lisa Klein's had enough of the other three. She's decided she'd rather try and join Sophie Wright at the front if she can. Going through the start-finish area now, Sophie Wright will give the crowd something to cheer. Those on the streets of Glasgow today, not a bad day at all here in Scotland. And Sophie Wright goes through. We'll get an accurate time check on her advantage shortly. These are the three chasers, but they're just in front of them. Lisa Klein from Germany, she's the second rider on the road. Here she is.
Well, it's a nice day to spend at Glasgow Green, isn't it? It looks overcast on your television picture because it is, but it's certainly not cold.
It's overcast with an occasional hint of sunshine. We'll settle for that.
I think these riders will. It'll be a different race if these roads were wet.
Do you remember the men's road race from the Commonwealth Games, Chris? It was, the weather was absolutely appalling, wasn't it?
It certainly made a spectacle for us to watch.
I seem to remember a lot of flights being cancelled from Glasgow Airport that day. Swirling wind and rain. Made for an epic race, though. It was a great race.
It certainly did.
Yeah, women's race was really good as well, won by Lizzie Deignan, Lizzie Armitstead as was. And here's Pintar, just ahead of the main field.
Getting an idea of the checks now. So it's 35 to Brand, about 55 it looked like to the next group. And the clock started at the crossing of the finish line.
So what, 55 to Klein, the German?
35 to Klein, 55 to the remaining group of three.
It's a very large main field still altogether.
The Great Britain team sitting on the front. See, they'd be quite happy to bring back everybody but their own rider now. So just keeping out of trouble more than anything else.
The other British riders in the race, Elizabeth Banks, Alice Barnes, Danny Christmas, Anna Henderson, Nikki Juniper, Abby May Parkinson and Danny Rowe. Ursula Pintar is just dangling in front of the peloton here.
2 minutes back on our lone leader, and the peloton another, 20 seconds back on that. Not quite.
Two minutes 15 to the peloton from the front of the race. Danny Rowe just going through our picture. Saw Anna van der Breggen as well, the Olympic road race champion. So we have a lone leader, one chaser, and then these three.
Brand, having sat on, done no work, then attacked, has got absolutely nobody who wants to help her out now.
Well, Quagliotto is just not interested in doing anything at any point other than just sitting on everyone's wheel. No. Quagliotto hasn't lifted a finger at all in this break at all.
Well, you can vent your frustration, but they're all free to play out their own strategies. Nothing to stop any rider attacking or sitting on. That's how this works.
And Italy with a very, very strong team. Marta Bastianelli, Giorgia Bronzini, Marta Cavalli, Elena Cecchini, Maria Giulia Confalonieri, Lisa Longo Borghini, and Soraya Paladin as well. It's a stacked lineup of cycling talent that Italy have got out on the roads of Glasgow tonight.
Perhaps one of the things that makes it slightly more interesting here, or complicated depending on your viewpoint, no race radios allowed, so the information can't flow freely, I got there in the end, around this circuit.
It's been a long day already.
Certainly has. You've got to go back to the team car for information, which is not great. You've got to wait till you go past the pits.
Yeah, we saw that. We saw Audrey Cordon going back to the team car, the French rider, and Ursula Pintar's time dangling in front of the peloton is about to come to an end. Great Britain en masse at the front of the peloton. And at the front of the race itself at the moment. I wonder whether Lisa Klein is getting any closer to Sophie Wright at the front. It's just over half a minute, the gap between the pair of them, but Klein had decided she'd had enough of the others in that chase group because they just weren't working together at all. Klein looked desperate to get on with it, but nobody else wanted to work with her, so she's done the only option, taken the only option, I think, other than give up completely, and that's to just plough on alone and hope to join up with Sophie Wright in the centre of the city now. So Lucinda Brand and Quagliotto of Italy have decided to just sit up, and Juliette Labousse of France is pressing on. Still, she's trying to chase. So we have three riders at the front of the race, each of them on their own at the moment, and then these two who were in the breakaway slipping back to the peloton.
Well, interestingly, the British team is riding here. They're on the front, and they're not just riding tempo, they're pushing on.
Would you not have thought they might just let other people do that for a little while, given that there's a British rider at the front of the race and there's quite a long way to go?
Not privy to their strategies. It seems somewhat eyebrow-raising stuff, but let's see what happens.
1 minute and 55 seconds, the gap from the front of the race to the peloton, and they've covered 60 kilometres now in this race.
Well, they're doing some damage here. Just look at the field stringing out at the back. Some riders really starting to feel it. The 60 Ks in, 70 Ks remaining.
This is Labousse, Juliette Labousse from France, and the peloton not far behind her, so she may as well just wait for them now, because they're going to catch her sooner rather than later.
Well, I'm just wondering if they want to mop up Labousse, and then they'll leave Sophie Wright to do her thing.
Lisa Klein's ahead as well from Germany.
Yeah, that's true. But you wouldn't set your whole team chasing at this stage of the race. It's more likely to try and set up a move.
Still haven't seen Sophie Wright for a little while. We haven't seen the gap between Sophie Wright at the head of the race and Lisa Klein from Germany in second place. Here's Lisa Klein, and I can't see Sophie Wright in front of her. So the gap is still obviously quite decent in the British rider's favour.
Well, it's had a mixed race so far, been sitting on, been working, been chasing, but I do fear it's all for naught. She's likely to bridge the gap to Sophie Wright, I think, but and probably a good thing, the two of them getting together. But no information, of course, and if Sophie Wright doesn't know, she won't have the choice to wait to get an ally in the mid stages of this race.
Well, looking at it, it's obviously still a reasonable gap. Clearly not been visible in any of our shots in the last minute or so. As one of the race motorbikes just goes along behind Lisa Klein. 22 seconds, the gap from Sophie Wright to Lisa Klein. Sophie Wright, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, just 19 years of age still, from Horsford in Norfolk. This is Juliette Labousse from France. She's third on the road, but if the camera pans back, the peloton will be in vision. There they are.
Yeah, I can't see her finishing this race, to be honest, as it's going at the moment. She's certainly unlikely to join the two front riders, so she's kind of stuck in the middle without a job to do. She's not marking a break, she's not slipping the leash of the peloton.
She may as well go back to the peloton and sort of try and well, it's a relative term, but just catch her breath in the main field, and then see if there's anything else she can do to contribute for the French team. Well, they don't seem to be gaining on Labousse at the moment, but she's sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, there's our time check. First one we've had. And 22 seconds, 1:23.
So that's Klein at 22 seconds. Yeah. 1:23, this is the rider we're looking at here, and then 1:40 odd to the peloton. Here's the leader, Sophie Wright, a rider who, still a teenager, but has already had 2 heart surgeries and a broken shoulder blade in her career. She's also, as I mentioned before, a mountain bike rider named in the British squad in November of last year. She had arrhythmia. She was operated on at Papworth Hospital during her A-levels time. So she's dealt with one or two things along the way. But good to see her enjoying this European Championship road race and leading the way with 66 kilometres to go.
Plenty of people out to watch. These gaps quite small, and we see that the service motorbikes, blackboard you just spotted, or whiteboard rather in this case, on the right. That's how they're getting their time checks today. No radios.
They're getting it all old school, aren't they? All the information.
Yeah, we saw the service motorbike carrying wheels been somewhat more complicated by the arrival en masse of disc wheels. So we have disc braked wheels as well mixed into the peloton. So there's quite a variety that's required. If you don't get service off your own team car, that could be a problem.
That's a good shot. It's the first one we've had for a while that gives you some indication of the gradient the cyclists are dealing with. It's quite a steep old climb, albeit a fairly short one.
Well, some of them are peaking out to nearly 20%, but 13% is quite regular. 6 or 7 of them sprinkled around this course.
Just over 65 kilometres remaining.
British team gone from the front now, and it's Slovenia back in charge.
The attack from one of the Spanish riders coming now as well. Dutch all gathered towards the back there. Number 7 is Ellen van Dijk. Number 1, Marianne Vos. Number 10 there from Italy, Giorgia Bronzini, a 2-time world road racing champion in 2010 and 11. And that move by the Spanish rider has been marked very quickly. Still a very large peloton here in this women's road race. Still nothing decisive or potentially decisive involving any of the big names in the race. Sophie Wright at the front, 20-odd seconds ahead of Lisa Klein from Germany. And then Juliette Labousse dangling, I think, within sight for the most part. There we are. So 32 seconds now. The advantage has gone up for Sophie Wright over Klein. 2:11 back to Labousse, and as you can see, 2:24 to this group we're looking at now, the main pack.
So Sophie Wright really committing to this move, decided she's not going to have anything else to contribute to the team if it does come back together. So I may as well really go for it now, play all my cards and make it difficult for them, force the bigger teams to have to do the chasing, and that's perhaps what we're seeing now. The pace definitely increased in the main field.
This is Labous.
Who's just been off the front, went back to the peloton.
Well, the peloton closing in. There's an inevitability about what's going to happen. But Labous still pressing on for the time being. She knows that her time ahead of the main field is drawing to a close. But she'll be able to pick her own line through down this descent that's about to start.
Not the best of surfaces in Glasgow, I have to say. Makes it slightly more challenging perhaps, but there's some lumps and bumps. Favour those with the 28 to 30 mil tyres. See the bouncing of the carbon bikes here.
52 seconds advantage for Sophie Wright over Lisa Klein. Further ahead, this is the third rider on the road that we're watching now. I think the issue we've got here, Chris, is there are only a certain number of motorbikes out on the race, so they can't be in several places at once. I think that's potentially what's limiting our viewing of everybody, including the front of the race. Just off the back there is Martina Ritter from Austria. In the red with the black shorts. Here's the leader. Sophie Wright still going well.
Ploughing a lone furrow, I think, is the appropriate cliche for this particular scenario. A lot of people, I suppose it makes it much more accessible. That's one of the real upsides to a street circuit than sections of this course. There are lots of people out to watch.
Two minutes 20 over the peloton, with 65 kilometres covered, so we're just over halfway through. No drag here for Sophie Wright.
Many people realise just how lumpy Glasgow is. Some beautiful old Georgian houses. Getting some information here from the Commissar.
Will she regard it as good news? Back with the main field. I think about 2 minutes 20 behind Lisa Brennauer there in the black helmet of the white jersey of Germany.
So they're around Elmbank now, if my memory serves, and I'm going all the way back to the Commonwealth Games, sort of mid-course area, heading up towards Kelvin Grove Park.
Brennauer actually is in really good form, isn't she? We've seen that from the pursuit, and it's not as if she's just been concentrating on the track, she's been riding on the road as well. Peloton not really making any inroads yet into the advantage held by Sophie Wright. 2 minutes 31. Lisa Klein certainly not making any inroads into joining her at the front of the race. Did look for a while as if she might. The gap was only about 20 seconds and they could have worked quite well together potentially, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen now.
It's not going to happen now, no.
It's now gone up to 1 minute and 5, the advantage for Wright.
Well, the Dutch not getting nervous, but realise it's time to just start to put a little bit of pace into this race.
Dutch tapping a little harder on the pedals. Here's the race leader.
that 13% climb, isn't it? And you can really tell using all the sprockets at the back here.
Montrose Street, I think. Oh, it's a nasty little climb as well.
Well, that's why the Dutch are at the front. They're going to try and break it up.
Get the feeling the race is about to really start among the
Well, I'm kind of
favourites
wondering what kind of formation they're after, because they've already been in a break and then chose not to work. So what is the scenario you're trying to create here?
Not sure is the answer, but Germany and Britain and France keen to go with it just to make sure it's marshalled, whatever happens. Sweden represented just off the front of the peloton, but nothing decisive yet.
I think that's Nikki Juniper monitoring. They're all together.
2:35 the gap, just gone up by 4 seconds from our last time check.
The ups and downs of Glasgow.
It's a great running, but there's quite a tight little chicane coming up at the end of this, and they go right and then left, sweeping through. Tight when you're going at those sort of speeds anyway, potentially, when there's quite a lot of you on the looking for the same bit of the road.
A little bit of everything on this circuit. Wide roads, narrow roads, bad surfaces.
Good ones. Buchanan Street. Here we are at the rear end of the peloton, and familiar figure there of Martina Ritter, who was there before. But there's an added intensity to the riding now.
Well, they are driving up these short ramps, but they're not really doing anything with it over the top. It's the counters. If you genuinely want to get away, that's the moment when you counter. So Italy have got a couple of riders here that don't seem keen to get involved in the race at this point.
Italy well represented up here towards the front as the pace intensifies at the front of the peloton. .230 the advantage for Sophie Wright over these riders here. Juliette Labousse, we've forgotten about her for the last 10 minutes or so. She's just been that far in front of the peloton for ages.
Yeah,
that's an awful lot of effort, considering we know what's going to happen. And they're so close to her.
The tactics are beyond me.
Meanwhile, here's the leader, Sophie Wright, the 19-year-old from Great Britain, continues on her own at the head of this women's road race. 59 kilometres, it's still a long, long way. But whatever happens now, she will have been at the front of the race for a good portion of it. Well, most of these riders, or a good portion of them, may well be in the time trial on Wednesday, but Sophie Wright has turned the road race into a time trial from a personal point of view, for the most part, in the last hour or so. Service required there for Sara Penton of Sweden.
Rear wheel puncture by the look of it. A slow one, so she's able to keep riding while she's waiting for service to come up. Definitely getting friskier.
Juliette Labousse has been reeled in finally.
So just two riders out front now. And there's one of them.
Second on the road, Lisa Klein, who wasn't able to bridge the gap. She left it a bit late before dropping the other breakaway companions at that time, or chase group companions, I should say. And Sophie Wright had disappeared off into the distance, and Wright's advantage has only gone up over Lisa Klein the longer they've been out there.
Stayed pretty consistent against the peloton too.
Coming in towards the finish now, Sophie Wright.
So she's ridden around Glasgow Green and is moving back around the pits area.
Still 4 laps to go. Nearly 2 hours in the saddle so far. Still a decent sized group with the favourites contained within it. Among them, the Olympic champion Anna van der Breggen, last year's champion Marianne Vos.
Well, as she leaves the park, the peloton enter.
Refueling on the move, an important part of the race here, particularly as it wears on. The rider in the green, Alice Sharp from Ireland. Here's Lisa Klein. And, well, her deficit is to the leader has just gone up. She looks as if she's finding it tough out there. Well, she's actually, I think, slightly closer to the peloton now than she is to the front of the race.
125 there, I'll make it, as she went over the line. And they'll time the main group as they come through.
Danny Rowe we saw a few moments ago, prominent as the peloton went through. Danny Rowe there in the middle of your picture, probably about 5 from the front there. I think she's likely to be active when it really starts to kick off from the peloton. Now, surely it must. With 56.4 kilometres remaining, here come the main field. We'll just see the gap from this group of big favourites to see how far they are behind the lone leader of the race at this moment in time as they come up towards the line on the green here in Glasgow. And it's still a sizable group, as you can see, just over 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 33 seconds. The gap back from 19-year-old Sophie Wright of Great Britain to the main peloton here. 56 kilometres remaining in the women's road race.
Kelvin Grove Park, eventually. And when they go to Kelvin Grove Park, they wind round that park and they come back down into town and work their way towards the... Now then, Lucinda Brand, who's had a few problems in the race already, and she's had a very dramatic time of things, it has to be said. Almost collided with a spectator, I'd like to say, the second lap of this race. And now I think she's got a technical problem, and I wonder what she was worried about beforehand. Getting assistance from her team, having to drop off the peloton. Not the worst thing in the world for her, because at the moment, as we see the Ukrainian team trying to pull things out, but it's really interesting to work out what the next move. Chap, German team. Charlotte Becker behind there. Are we going to see a break? I think we're going to see a break here. We're Poliotto was in the group, the first group that broke away in the second lap. And that group, many of the members have been sucked in except for Sophie Wright and Klein, who are the two out in front at the moment, and Wright is a minute ahead of Klein, over a minute ahead of Klein. It's going to be really interesting now. See who will make that break. It's tough to call though at the moment, anything could happen. Very interesting to see. See now the riders, they're near the centre of town now, near Buchanan Street, which is the main principal shopping street of Glasgow. And that then comes round behind Glasgow Central Station. And after doing that, they then work their way up St Vincent Street and around Bank Street. That will take them towards Kelvingrove Park. And the riders, so far, this is a new group looking to respond and looking to really make something happen, really looking to close the gap. Certainly be looking to do that in any case. Mathisen of Denmark, one of those to look out for. There's the break from her, to make push things on. This is what we've been waiting for. Member of that group to break away and chase down Klein and Wright to really kick this race back into gear. She's got support behind her. We'll see now who will go with it, who will be part of that group, who will look to stay in touch. I think that's kind of the Netherlands in that group. Now the riders being given refreshments on the road. Indian rider just missing out there. Supporting for her. Well, they made that little break, the group, and then they just slowed things down now. Just, you don't want to go out on a limb on your own, really. At this stage of the race, it can be so grueling. Hopefully soon, to get a time check on the gap between Wright and Klein and this group here, because that at the moment is the difference of the race. There's almost 3 races going on, and there is Sophie Wright. She is heading into Kelvingrove Park again, and past the Art Museum. And so far, so good for Sophie Wright of Great Britain. The teenager leading the way, and leading by over a minute. And chasing her is Klein. And behind Klein, further minute back, is the peloton, which is now beginning to get a little bit stretched. There are some of the riders have made a little break. We've seen Van der Breggen make a break and Longo Borghini. And now we're seeing other riders. That's Emily Morberg of Norway, with a little bit of a problem at the back of the group. Not too much of an issue. Things are so tightly packed together, but you start to think now, will that group start to be stretched out? There's going to be another group who will try to make a break. Now that's the gap between Sophie Wright and the group here, and they are closing the gap. Now the gap was at the start of this lap. We're now on lap 5. The start of this lap, the gap was about 2 minutes 30, so they're making up ground on Sophie Wright at the moment. Wouldn't be surprised, because there are big hitters in this group, but none of them really necessarily have made a break here. And still problems at the back for Morberg of Norway. Looks like it could be a flat tyre. Either way, I think this could be her race more or less over at this stage. A lot of work to do to get back to a peloton who are now looking to probably kick things on. Can she get back into contact with that group, the Norwegian? So far, the Norwegian riders haven't really been in the mix. Suzanne Anderson, one of those who's tipped to do, make an impression on this competition. And the group winding their way into Kelvingrove Park. And they will go past the Art Museum, and then they come out the back of the park and down past the university. And they come back then around the top of the park, the north of the park, back into town. So far, this is a move made in Germany. Try and open things up from the peloton. What do we see here? Close the gap. Koppenberg and Lippert amongst the Germans in that group. 3 Germans in that. I think that's Chantal Black as well, I should say. 2 Germans and Chantal Black, the world champion on the road. Now Sophie Wright, looking at our leader again. She's been the leader now for 3-4 laps. And that's some time. You wonder now, is this the moment that her lead begins to fall? Because those chasing will start to really push. Is that Lucinda Brand there? Leading, hoping to make something happen. Brandon looks as an attack down the right-hand side and a little bit of a push now. A break to move things on. Is that Marianne Vos? I believe it is. She's leading the way now of this chasing group. That was an exciting little burst by the reigning European champion. And we'll start to see some power moves from some of those Dutch riders and the likes of Longo Borghini. You can't keep them quiet for too long. It is a fascinating watch, this one. And all the more fascinating for British viewers, with Sophie Wright leading the way. And such a showcase for decision-making on the go for these riders. They have to think on their wheels, I should say, on their seats as things change. They'll have had plans before the race, but other riders can disrupt those. Break from Sophie Wright, for example, may have caught some riders by surprise. And we've seen some exciting little bursts from several riders in this race. And they'll start to wind things up as well, because if riders get away from the pack at this sort of stage in a race and build up too big a lead at this stage, it can be difficult to reel them in. So, just over 50 kilometres to go. 2/3 of the way through this race. Danny Rowe for Great Britain on the left-hand side, trying to work on the flank. But there's little mini attacks here and now as different riders look to open things up. Chantal Black likes to put the work in. She is now leading this group. The World Road Race champion of 2017. One of the Dutch contingent, wearing the rainbow jersey, which the world champions always wear. And she picked up that world title last year by making a big break, similar to Sophie Wright, but much later in the race, and doing what she's doing now effectively. This is the move from Chantal Black, which did well for her in the World Road Race. And this is a little group now who are looking to stretch things out, led by Chantal Black, and they will be looking to close the gap on Klein of Germany, who is currently in second place behind Sophie Wright. It's fascinating to watch this now. Look at this, 1:30. They are eating into Wright's lead, and they've got time to do it. That's Danny Rowe now in that chasing group. It's easy to forget that Klein is still in the mix. She's in second at the moment. We've also got Luxembourg rider Christine Majerus, who's always there or thereabouts in these races. She likes to make breaks, especially on the tough rougher parts of the course. Strong rider. What a race so far. Are we starting to feel like this is the moment where the race really, truly comes alive? Chantel Black digging deep there. Where's Van der Breggen? There's Van der Breggen coming up on the outside. And the big guns, are they starting to wind things up now? Because 49 kilometers to go, but the business end, well, we're into it now, because this is where the big moves happen. I think Sana Khan has had a problem. I don't think she's in the race anymore. She can't finish. And the riders now, this is that beautiful scenic vision of them leaving Kelvingrove Park. It's lovely to see there. It's the park quadrant, then the terrace, the gate and the circus. Sophie Wright, the race leader. Still the race leader. Feels like forever. Little smile as well from the teenager. She must be enjoying this, whatever happens now. Her lead is slowly coming down. She's lost over a minute just on this lap alone. So they are closing on her. And the chasing pack there is, don't forget Klein, and then you have this chasing group. Klein of Germany currently in second on her own, and then this group led by Chantel Black, the Netherlands, wearing the rainbow jersey. And behind her, it's a long line. Third in that line, Van der Breggen, reigning Olympic champion and tour leader. They go now towards the city centre. And this is where you get that descent down towards West George Street. This is that descent again, which is where a lot of the riders, some will ease off and some will power on and take advantage of the extra speed. See them coming down now. This is the group chasing. Germany at the head of it. Van der Breggen tucked in behind there. Borghini, there's Chantel Black, who's just dropped off the front. To the front of this group. Now there's a little break here. I think that's Brand, Cinder Brand, who's had about 4 wins in this, or wins I should say, in this race. Fair few people I've spoken to have really backed her for this one. Brand making the push to close the gap on the second place Klein. Look at this, fighting hard. And this is on the downhill. You think this was the point where the riders rest? Not at this level. This is the point where you dig in deep still, take advantage of the speed. So Wright still in front, but that lead is coming down. Without just easing off on the slight climb. And Sophie Wright at the moment getting support from the Finnish technical team. They'll be willing her on. Little smile from Wright. Hold on in there. They believe in her. Here, cries of "Go on, Sophie." They've recognised she is leading. Digging in. She's shown some real guts in this race because she leads by a minute. She did lead by 2.5 minutes at the start of this lap, don't forget. And there now, Cinder Brand trying to pull away. And at the moment, you can see digging deep Brand, trying to work her way up. Another of those climbs. She's working so hard. She was in the group on this second lap that did the first breakaway, that it included Wright, and Wright and Klein are the only two who've managed to keep that distance from the pack. Look at that for a shot. All those riders working up that hill now, which takes them towards Glasgow Cathedral. Fabulous course this. They won't be thinking it right now, the riders, but so many little challenges for them, tight turns. We saw a rider earlier on almost hit one of the barriers. Rand herself almost hit a spectator. And there you can see how difficult it can be. The struggle there for Katarzyna Wilkos of Poland. And these are the points in the race where riders now will begin to make some moves. We're getting a little breakaway on the flank here. Group that includes Danny Rowe of Great Britain. And all the other teams will be thinking, what are the Dutch doing? What is their plan? They've got 8 riders here, and well over half of them are top level operators and very much amongst the favourites. And that's not to say do disservice to the other members of their team who are elite riders themselves. It is a very, very strong Dutch outfit, who so far, at the moment, are playing catch-up to Sophie Wright, who was really, really impressed and done so well in this race. Looking at the back of the field now, and you can see how difficult it is at the back there. And that is Lotte Lepisto, one of those riders who would have really been fancied for this, and she is really struggling on this course, which is a bit of a shock, it has to be said. People thought it might be tough for her because of the lack of team members, only 3, and we've had a fall as well. And it looks a bit nasty there as well. It doesn't look good. In pain on the floor, I think that's Séverine Hérault. It's a nasty collision. See who else is in there. Hérault does not look in a good way at all. And that's Chantel, I think it's... Well, the riders here being moved out of the road. They look in pain. It doesn't look too good at the moment. Belgian riders down there. But Hérault looks in particular pain for France. Didn't catch what happened there, but there's the replay of it. Didn't look good. We're watching another replay here, and a bit further up. She's still down in a row, and doesn't look very good for her. Juliette Labou, who was one of the leaders early on, she's got back on her bike. She looks like she'll be able to carry on. At the moment, we're hoping that Séverine Hérault okay. Somebody who is doing pretty well though so far. Sophie Wright, still the leader. She comes to complete another lap. After this, there'll be just 3 to go. The pack doing the same, but they are not as far behind as they once were, and they'll soon... You feel like this could be the lap now where they close in on Sophie Wright. This could be the lap where her lead disappears. The trend of the last lap continues. Here's Wright. Cheered on by the crowd again, and she's had at least 4 situations like this. Wonderful ride from the youngster. These are those riders behind. Juniper of Great Britain on the left, who did the early work. And Sophie Wright. So here we go. This will give us a good time check. Let's have a look here. She's smiling as she's crossing the line. She's enjoying this, Sophie Wright, and that's brilliant to see. Now, how far back are the other riders? Where is Klein? Sucked back into that group. Will they close the gap on her? This is going to be interesting now to find out how far ahead Sophie Wright is of this. Now, how far back are the other riders? Where is Klein? Being sucked back into that group. Will they close the gap on her? This is going to be interesting now to find out how far ahead Sophie Wright is of this group now. As they come round, and we'll soon see. Is it going to be under a minute? It looks like it could be. Klein back in the mix. We saw that early, that crash on the previous lap. Moreau not in a good way in that. I think Long and Demi and Labou were able to get to their feet, but not Moreau. They cross the line here, and it's just going to be under a minute. 57 seconds, the lead at the moment for Sophie Wright. See Chantal Black at the front of that. Thiessen of Denmark. Van Dijk and Van der Breggen in that bunch for the Netherlands. Who is going to be the next group to make a move? Sophie Wright here. She'll make her way now past or down Buchanan Street eventually, and then behind the station, or above the station, depending how you want to look at a map, and then up St. Vincent Street, that steady climb. Keep testing her, and she's getting plenty of support from the technical team, British Cycling. The teenager. A little refreshment, a little push on. Just the 3 laps to go, and they're into that first of those 3 laps. So interesting to see now. They are closing that gap on Sophie Wright. They've already made up 7 seconds in the first kilometre or so, and this is now what we're going to expect to see, a break from the front and a chance to close the gap on Wright again. And I fancy the next few kilometres, if she had a mirror on her bike, she would see a group of just under 100 riders behind and closing on her. Wonderful performance so far from Sophie Wright. We can't take anything away from her. She's been superb in that race, and she is still leading the way. No matter how much we mention that she could be caught, she's still leading proceedings. Lisa Brennau of Germany, who won that gold medal last night on the track. And we've had a lot of what I call faux moves so far, little breaks from that pack, but no one really able to stretch away in the peloton. We've got a group of about 5, but they're not too far ahead of the main group. And they're the group who are trying to lead the way in closing that gap on Wright, which is closing, it has to be said. But you can't take away what a wonderful, wonderful race she's had so far. Here we go. What are we going to get now? 40 kilometers to go. And the question is that peloton behind? There's some of the true elite names of women's sport. Let's see a spectator run behind the cyclist there. Probably the best thing to do in these circumstances. get now? This is the question. It's so intriguing. It's so interesting to try and work out. This Barnes of Great Britain looking to lead the charge there, and Lucinda Brand, who has been there or thereabouts in this race on several occasions. She made the first break. So we're looking at the back of the field. That field of Slovenian Pintar. And Charlotte Bravard of France. What are we going to see now? What's going to happen? We're going to reel in Sophie Wright on this lap. That is the question. To the 7th lap here. Just looking at Brand's face, she's the 4th back there in the orange. She's had that grimace or that look on her face for the past, I'd say, 4 laps. And Alice Barnes thinks about a break. Chasers in that pack. These riders now looking to stretch things out, and the riders looking to catch Sophie Wright, and the leaders after Wright, the next highest Brit at the moment is Danny Christmas in that chasing group. Looking at the back of the field at the moment, Charlotte Becker, who would have expected to be a bit further up proceedings as it stands. What are we going to see? What are we going to get? I think here we're still waiting. We're still waiting to have that break, that real concerted effort. But at the moment, they are working together to catch Wright rather than anyone going alone. And Sophie Wright still in front. Can't repeat enough what an impressive display it's been from Sophie Wright as we get a little break down the right-hand side. Is this going to be the first of those breaks? Is this going to be one of the ones where we get a real split in the pack? I think that's Kai of the Netherlands at the front there. The riders come down, nobody's followed her, nobody has followed her, so as she enters Kelvin Grove Park, this will be for the 7th time for these riders. We'll see this stretch only 2 more times after this, and this is the first chance now, or perhaps the first moment, we might see a new leader, with Sophie Wright currently leading and working hard to maintain that lead as she has for some time now. Reminder that Kant of Belgium is one of the Belgium squad who had to drop out. And that chasing pack, and there is that confirmation that it is Mackay and Sophie Wright. And so far, that move from Mackay is a real example of how this Dutch team likes to work. We saw Brand push on early on, then we saw Black have a go, and now it's a 3rd member of the orange team to really go for it. And there we go, Sophie Wright. Is she about to see her lead disappear on this stretch? Because Mackay is just behind here. Is it there? So as far as the British contingent are concerned, we saw Danny Christmas have a break, and it's Wright who is the representation for Britain as it stands. Mackay is the one who made that break for the Dutch, and there's Marianne Vos. And she's just tucked in behind now. And just behind Kaiju, made that break and is now just dropping back a bit. I think they know now they've pulled Sophie Wright back into it, and that means that Wright will soon see her lead disappear. What a performance, though, so far. She's done so well to lead the race for so long. What a ride. What an inspiration. Only 19. Anything is possible. But her lead is now down to just 13 seconds. And you'd expect this group, the world's best, even though it's European Championship, I keep saying it, it's a lot of the world's best are here. And there's Sophie digging in deep again up that little blow of the cheek. She's enjoyed every moment of this race, it has to be said. When she made the early break on the second lap, she was smiling. Oh, she was shaking her head, I should say, that nobody followed, and then that was quickly followed by a smile. Makai just brought in the rest of the group here, and this is where we'll see the movers and shakers start to work hard. And the Dutch, look at all those orange vests and all that talent. Not many people could look past a winner coming from that group, but Sophie Wright, fantastic performance, but her lead is about to disappear. People, the crowd working hard to stay out of the road, that's probably a good idea. Sophie takes a little look behind her. She can see the wave is coming, the tidal wave is coming, and she will be eaten up by that group very soon. The first, though, will be the leader, or the leading chaser. And then you'll see around the corner the rest of the group coming. Just a couple of seconds now at lead for Sophie Wright, and she'll pick up every moment of this. She still is in the lead. But she's a bit of a star. Those who know her on the National Road Race Series will know a lot about the talent that she has, but this is on a continental stage now, and she's really displayed what she's capable of. And how much work that may have helped for the rest of the British team, for the likes of Rowan Barnes, we will soon find out. But it is almost impossible to call at the moment. And there are still 35 kilometres to go, just under 36 kilometres to go. So is this going to be the bend where Wright's lead disappears? This might be the moment. And Sophie Wright is about to see her lead disappear, and it goes to Sabrina Stultjens of the Netherlands, is our new race leader. And she had that lead, Sophie, for these 5 laps. Losing count of how many laps she's been in the lead, I think since the second lap at least. And what a wonderful day to remember for her. But now it's one of that Dutch super contingent who is taking it on. Sabrina Stultjens is the next to make the break, and when you see a Dutch rider making a break, you start to think it's a serious one. Stultjens, who competes in cyclocross as well as the road. Under 23 road race champion, but that was about 4 years ago now, some time ago this season. Isn't one too much of note, but Sophie Wright staying in contention. She refuses to go away. And she is not giving in yet. You wouldn't have expected her to either. Now that's Elizabeth Banks at the back there for Britain. She's starting to feel the pain. She's trying to hold on to this group now. And when you see riders in pain now, it's very difficult for them to overcome that at this stage of the race when things start to really pick up. And Sophie Wright, she's not given up yet, I have to say. Not to say that she would give up, but it has to be said that you feared that she would disappear back into that pack, but she still leads the race. And you're starting to feel, is this the moment where the Dutch descend on the front? There's a group at the front of that chasing pack, and they are just so good from this position. Stoltjens with that attack, and it's clear as day what the plan is now. She's pulled the leader back in. And this is the group behind. So we saw Makaj. They made the break first before Stoltjens. They are just a smooth working team now. Now these two are about 10 seconds ahead of the rest, and Sophie Wright now almost using Stoltjens as a someone to work behind in the slipstream of. Doubt Stoltjens will let her do that though. And there's the big group behind, and 4 breaking away. I think Chantal Black is one of those. It's hard to tell from here. I don't think she is actually. Sweet round now, 33.5 kilometers to go. Not long left. They are almost at the end of lap 7 of 9. 130 kilometers in total. 2 more laps after this current lap that they're on, and they're coming towards the end of it. Just about 4 more kilometers to go of this particular lap. And the crowd gets bigger here. Now that's the barrier that almost, a rider almost came a lap ago. And they'll come, sweep round now, and they'll head into George Square again. When we get to George Square again, it's that climb, that difficult climb. It's a tough one. It's short, but it is tough. Up Montrose Street, which takes them towards Glasgow Cathedral, the conveniently named Cathedral Street. This now, group behind, looking to swallow up Sophie Wright. Said it already, we have to give Sophie Wright so much credit for her performance here. You really do, because she went out there and she tried to stretch the race along. They didn't all go with her, but now they're looking to eat her up, and that's Chantal Black on the right there, closing in on Sophie Wright, and that's that Montrose Street climb, and it's make or break that climb. Looks behind her one more time. Black looks over her shoulder. And Wright just tucks in now behind Black, and this is how the race is starting to really, really kick on. Who will be the who will make the difference, I should say. That's Elena Cecchini there. We'll see. Moves are made as the riders will now, they'll go Cathedral Street and they'll start coming around. Now they don't go right past the cathedral, they get close enough, of course. They'll come down the high street, the old high street of Glasgow. And when they get to the bottom, they'll turn left at the bottom of that road, London Road, which leads back onto Glasgow Green. And Glasgow Green, the oldest park in the city, which is where this race started 2.5 hours ago, and the riders coming towards the end of lap 7. Weaving her way around the narrow streets, uniquely narrow streets. And it is Cecchini. Black. It's Barnes in that 3. They are really now with Black in that move. It signals a lot to me because she made a relatively late break in the World Championships last year, and that was it. Now, who from that pack is going to be behind? They're 23 seconds behind the leaders. The new British rider now leading things out now in Alice Barnes. And Alice Barnes trying to stay with the front. What are we going to get? What's going to really be the moment where we feel like we get that indication of who are going to be the medalists? Keeney, Barnes and Black here pushing forward. We're about to come towards the end of lap number 7. 2 more after this for the riders, and that will be the just under 30k left to go mark. The main peloton. They are a group now right behind the leaders. It's all very tight. Can't read too much into it so far. The front 3 of Black, Barnes and Cecchini, they are the ones hoping to ease away from the front now. It's very, very hard to call. Got a chasing group now. Koppenberg of Germany leading that charge. So far, so difficult to call. Come round now onto, this is the last stretch of the lap. We'll get a sense of the gaps opening up here. It's not too much of a gap really between the leaders and the chasing group. Won't be too difficult for some of the riders in there to swallow up. There's a Longo Borghini in that group as well for Italy, and the Italians who really fancied their chances in this race. And they've got a rider in Elena Cecchini in that front 3, and Barnes of Great Britain, and Chantal Black in the rainbow jersey. So Van Dijk getting rid of some nourishment there. Really is gearing up. Beforehand, people said this might be set for a bunch sprint. Still seems very much possible with 2 laps to go of this race. For those front 3 in any case, we'll see how far behind the group, chasing group are now. Barnes, Cecchini and Black. They are the leaders, and there's the group behind, which contains countless big names. Just a reminder, before we get towards the end of this race, that Sophie Wright led it for so long for Great Britain. Brilliant ride from her. And then Klein tried to chase her for some time, and she got swallowed up. And now we're looking at the pack, but who is going to be the new Sophie Wright of this race? Is anybody else going to give it a go and push on in this penultimate lap, make the difference? Still the front 3 here. Elena Cecchini of Italy at the back of that group. Leading it, Alice Barnes. She's often ridden with sister Hannah. Now out in front, and to the side of Chantal Black. Digging deep. Kronberg of Germany, and behind her, a huge group. And they are 20 seconds behind as they lead Glasgow Green. And we're about to see how much this climb, this is where it starts, a steady climb up towards Kelvin Grove Park. Find out from here which of the riders will stay with the pace. Often by the end of races, between the main peloton and everyone else, there can be gaps of a minute or so, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case as it stands. It is so difficult to call. We've had a few riders who would have expected to be in the mix, not quite. Lepisto have not stayed in there or been in the mix. Cecchini, the back of that group there, Chantel Black and Anne Barnes. They're the front three. Buchanan Street, the shopping artery of Glasgow. That will then move them past Glasgow Central Station for the penultimate time. Again, front of that group, so you can see them. They're still all bunched together because of the nature of the course, the tight nature of the course. They have to just thin out on those turns. Look at that. Not much between them. There is about 20 seconds or so between this group and the leaders. And when it gets to this sort of stage, you start to look at who are the power sprinters. And you can't help but look past the likes of Voss and Der Breggen. And that's what these races seem to be set up for. Now, at the moment, a little break there. Elizabeth Banks of, or Alice Barnes, I should say, Great Britain. Front three. Looking very comfortable, I have to say. And all the talk about Danny Rowe beforehand, but Barnes was rightly knew she had the quality as well, and this lady certainly has the quality. Chantel Black, that rainbow jersey. It's put a marker on your back, but it also indicates your quality, what you're capable of. And this is Elena Cecchini, who will be cheered on by the Italians in attendance here. They've had a wonderful competition so far on the track, and wouldn't they love to really make a mark on the road. The men's, they've got some Viviani, but in the women's, they have got quality as well. Real quality. And all the talk about the Dutch riders, don't discount the Italians. But the Germans have been working as a team throughout this competition. We see the likes of Sabrono, Charlotte Becker. Klein, of course, made that break earlier on. This is now working their way back up towards Kelvin Grove Park. And when they get there, again, it's more of those tight turns, those punchy climbs, those climbs that could really make the difference. Here's our leaders. Front three. Barnes, Cecchini and Black. They will push on and stretch this field out. This is the chasing pack. And look how tightly together the German riders are. What is going to be the next move from this group? We're looking at the back of the pack now. Slovakian rider. And some of the riders have dropped out already of this race. Saw Sanne Cant of Belgium, who some people had under the radar, she hasn't finished this race. Instead, we're seeing Alice Barnes striding away at the front, and her, Black and Cecchini, fancy they'd be working together here to pull away, but deep down, we know it's for their country and the teamwork. As we pull out now, the riders approaching Kelvingrove Park again, and they will, no doubt, realise that this is the penultimate time they'll see this point, and they'll know the end is nigh. 25 kilometres, just under 25 kilometres to go. We're on lap 8. This 14.2 kilometre course, which the female riders will have completed 9 times by the end. So far, nobody is closed on these 3. Black of the Netherlands wearing the rainbow jersey, and at the front, Elena Cecchini of Italy, who is one of the standout names in the Italian group. We'll talk about Borghini and the former world champion Bronzini. But Cecchini has a good CV of her own. Now, is this going to be trying to pull away? That's the question. So far, Hülkenberg in that group, and Becker as well. There's no doubt here that the Germans working together to move things on. Ellen van Dijk of the Netherlands is to be next Dutch rider. Here is that push again. They're just rotating things around the 3 Germans at the front. And you see them pick up like this. We'll soon see. Closing stages of this race. Chantal Blaak, Netherlands, looking behind her. It's not just to see who's behind her, but other of her Dutch teammates are following in behind, and they are closing in on that front 3. You do get the sense now this is building up to a bunch sprint. And sprints usually see Vos in the middle of them. Surprised not to see Van der Breggen at the front at the moment. Not particularly known for her sprinting, but certainly known for winning races. Lots of looks behind. They know the chasing group is closing on them. It's Barnes of Great Britain coming round and leading the race with 23.5 kilometres to go. Swig of water. Crowd still in full support of the cyclists. They've been on the road for just closing in on 3 hours now. These elite level performers, all with thoughts in their mind, many with thoughts in their mind of European gold. You can see from that aerial angle, another break from the chasing pack. And are we going to see some big moves, some big players in this race? Black still at the front, but everybody grouping in behind. Black takes a look, and there, the little breakaway comes to an end. And are we going to see a new leader here, swooping round? We've had a few in this race. Just looking back here to Sophie Wright, who led this race for so long. And she'll never forget this race. He led it for about 6 laps. The course. The riders now, another climb, another push towards the finish. It's the French rider leading the way. Van Dijk of the Netherlands, a time trial specialist. And there goes Vos on the blind side and making a little break for it. And who's going to follow her here? That's Barnes still tucked in behind, but it's Vos now in front. Marianne Vos, the great Marianne Vos, looking to defend her title and making the first real impact on this race. This is where things really, really, really start to warm up. I know I keep saying it, but this is the point in the race where, with 20 kilometers to go, you get a real sense of who's going to be in the mix and who's going to be in the mix for the medals as Brand now takes it on. And Longo Borghini is behind her. And riders refusing to drop off. You can see Van der Breggen in there. And this is now where we start to believe that the winner will come from this select group here. This is just exciting stuff, because when Vos made that break, had Bronzini just behind her, who was the silver medalist last time. And are we shaping up for a repeat of last year's edition? Once again, the riders leaving Kelvingrove Park, and this is where, as I've said before, the descent begins again, the gentle descent down West George Street and towards George Square. We are really in for a fabulous finish here. You can feel it already. It's Longo Borghini just tucked in behind, and a Breggen. And these two, who know each other so well from the World Tour. Just a little exchange there. Longo Borghini taking it on now. And is this one of those breaks where you really feel it's serious, where you feel like it's a title-winning break? Longo Borghini pushing on here, the Italian. The Italian team worked hard to get her into this position already, likewise for the Dutch team. And this has been a very good race so far. Sophie Wright led it for so long, and now it's Borghini and Van der Breggen who lead the way on the penultimate lap, coming towards the end of the penultimate lap. Lap 8 of 9 of this Glasgow course. And it's the Netherlands and Italy in front. Anna Van der Breggen, who's had a wonderful few years now, the Olympic champion. She is with Longo Borghini, who was the bronze medalist in Rio. And these two looking to pull away from the rest. And they look behind, well, Longo Borghini looks behind her, doesn't see the chasers. And this is a serious move now from these two elite performers. And that's the group chasing, which is a lot smaller than it was. We've seen attack after attack in this race, but this seems to be the one where you really feel now it could be a winning one. Just over 18 kilometers to go. The group now just behind, but this is the main pack chasing the front two of Van der Breggen and Borghini, Longo Borghini, who made their break, and he's really looked to go with them so far. If they're going to make the move, they're going to need to make it soon. George Square will welcome the riders for the penultimate time. One more lap after this.
Thanks, Claire. Welcome back, everyone. The business end of the race. This is Dani Rowe you're seeing, and Dani Rowe attacking from the peloton. She's not at the front yet. Anna van der Breggen, the Olympic champion, is alone in the lead alongside Elisa Longo Borghini from Italy. We're not sure of the gap. They only attacked a couple of minutes ago. It's probably about 20 seconds, something
20
like
seconds.
that. Yeah, but Dani Rowe has realised with the danger of these two. I mean, the two at the front, we mentioned van der Breggen's the Olympic champion. Well, Elisa Longo Borghini won the bronze medal in Rio in the same race. So that's the pedigree of the riders at the front who we're looking at now. And there's Dani Rowe in the background trying to bridge the gap. This, she recognises, could be the key moment of the whole race.
Well, it's not long to go now. The attacking started with 50 k's to go. It was actually the Dutch who started, Marianne Vos, and from that point on it was attack after attack, forming and reforming until we get to this point now. It really hasn't stopped at all for the last hour of racing.
One thing we should say is the last time you were with us, excuse me, Sophie Wright of Great Britain, the 19-year-old from Norfolk, was on her own in the lead. She was 2.5 minutes clear. Great ride from her. She was finally caught with 35 kilometres to go.
So these are the two leaders, and it is a class pair ahead of the field, but not by far at all. And Dani Rowe desperately trying to get on terms. You've just about got a glimpse of the peloton behind, so the whole race could easily come back together. A lot of motorised traffic been in some very small gaps, have to say, interfering with the racing, in my opinion. I mean, right now this motorbike is helping the chase, so that's quite unusual.
That's Ellen van Dijk from the Netherlands on the front in the chase in the white jersey. Lisa Brennauer, Elena Cecchini in the middle in the gold helmet in the blue of Italy. 16.7 kilometres to go, and Dani Rowe not active at the front of the race until now, so that's good from her point of view. But the Dutch attacks coming left, right and centre in the closing stages.
Clearly not happy with the makeup of that two-person breakaway up the road. Van der Breggen, a good rider, and they're all chasing behind. Rowe clawing her way across here.
She's more than a good rider, isn't she? She's the leader of the Women's World Tour this year. She nearly won La Course at the Tour de France. She led all the way to the line, finally overhauled by Annemiek van Vleuten, literally about 2 metres before they reached the line itself. It was the best finish you'll see to any bike race all year.
Longo Borghini, a great sprinter though, and not the company that you want. Rowe now across, also a good sprinter in a group of this size. Now will they work together, because they're going to have to make a choice quickly. You can see behind they're going to be joined soon if they don't really start to commit.
I'm not sure. I think that might be Floortje Mackaij from the Dutch team there, who is fourth on the road at the moment. These are the leaders. Longo Borghini going through, a member of the Wiggle High Five team, the World Championship bronze medalist in the road race when it was held in Valkenburg 6 years ago as well. So she's been one of the more prominent members of the women's peloton for quite a while. But Van der Breggen, the biggest name here in this trio. But Dani Rowe, bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games in the road race on the Gold Coast in the spring. She's had an excellent year, top 3 overall finishes in the Tour de Yorkshire when she had to battle injury towards the end, and then also in the OVO Women's Tour as well.
Well, they've got, I would say, barely a 15-second gap.
It is definitely Floortje Mackaij, by the way, who is chasing.
Yeah, 15 seconds back is an estimate. The peloton all starting to watch each other a little bit. No point attacking on the flatter section of the course. They'll wait till the steep ramps which litter the rest of the circuit.
She's with Aude Bieniek of France. Aude Bieniek of France. these are the two riders who are trying to join the three at the front of the race. Well, this looks key, doesn't it, Chris? Given the distance remaining and the makeup of the riders at the front, potentially anyway.
You can see the riders from Italy and from the Netherlands are now just going to follow anybody else who tries to chase. Germany really lost out here. They've already had 3 riders committed to chasing back the original breakaway.
Well, she's a fast finisher, Mackay, so they've got all bases covered if she can join this front group. She was a former winner of one of the races that is held in the spring every year against Wevelgem. She won that 3 years ago. She was third in Dwars door Vlaanderen this year as well. And there's an easing up there in that main field behind.
Yeah, they're all waiting to see who's going to do the chasing. There's a lot of good riders to do the marking here, so lots of the potential challengers could find themselves trapped.
Germany not represented here. Germany doing an awful lot of the work a little earlier on to try and bring the previous breakaway group back. And Lisa Brennauer of Germany telling the other riders to get to work, to try to chase, to bridge that gap again.
They've got to make that decision quickly because there's only 1 lap remaining. You heard the lap bell go there. These two are just 10 seconds behind. That would make a formidable group of 5 to work smoothly between these climbs. I don't think it's going to stick together though. I think we're going to see attacking on the short ramps. Longo Borghini can sprint.
It's taken a long time for this race to split up though, hasn't it? Despite the constant undulations of the course.
Yeah, Marianne Vos, the first real concerted attack with 51 Ks to go. And that established a 2-rider break. Saw Sophie Wright brought back into the fold.
Yeah, we had a little breakaway as well within the last 20 minutes or so with Alice Barnes alongside the world champion Chantal Black and Elena Cecchini. That was a dangerous breakaway, and it was Germany really that reeled that one in.
Yeah, it was Alice Barnes who drove that little group away with Chantal Black. She did a fantastic job. Been involved just before you came back to our pictures, trying to make a move, but Danny Rowe has just been waiting and waiting for this opportunity.
Well, Mackay's having to do quite a lot of work here. Bieniek happy to just sit on the Dutch woman's wheel. So 3 yet to become 5. They can see them there in the distance. Not really getting any closer though.
Well, this is a point. The gaps are small, but so is the distance remaining, and so are the people to chase. So decisions have to be made very quickly. Small gaps can be all it needs. On an ideal circuit for chasing, because of the steep ramps that we've mentioned, they'll do 2,500 meters of climbing over the course of this street circuit, which people didn't think would be hard enough. But as you can see, the race is in bits. They've climbed higher than the Col de Glibier today. So a mountain stage of the Tour equivalent round the streets of Glasgow.
Which is not something that would spring to mind when you look at these streets. It's only when you think of it and you add it all up cumulatively that's the sort of thing we're talking about here.
Well, it's been broken up into 63 separate challenges, that's why.
Danny Rowe on the front. She's had such a good year, really enjoying life with a Dutch team these days, the Woudeels squad, the same team as Marianne Vos. But Rowe on the front. If you've just tuned in, she is at the head of the race alongside the Olympic champion Anna van der Breggen from the Netherlands, and also Elisa Longo Borghini, the Olympic road race bronze medalist. So great trio here. Danny Rowe not impressed with the lack of help. The lack of help from the other two at the moment. But Floortje Mackay from the Netherlands and Ord Bieniek closing the gap.
Yeah, about 8 seconds back. I make it now, and have that visual incentive as they go down Buchanan Street. This would have been a pretty dangerous section, pedestrianised, nice and smooth. Had it been raining, thankfully dry. Overcast, but no sign of rain at the moment.
I think Germany are the most frustrated team at the moment, and Lisa Brennauer is probably the most frustrated rider.
Well, it's no good putting one rider on the front at this stage. I'm afraid you're going to have to commit yourself, get everybody to the task, or you will run out of space. You could see the team of Italy amassed, trying to stop an organised chase getting going.
Well, the Dutch and the Italians should be happy enough. They've got key riders in the best position at the front of the race. You can see the world champion there, Chantal Black, who was on the attack a little while ago, the Dutch woman, but she's now forced to sit towards the front end of the peloton. As we ride behind Ord Bieniek, and Floortje Mackay. Mackay's doing all the work out of the pair of them
Well,
there.
they're struggling to close the gap, aren't they? They're so near yet so far. You can see the peloton in the distance there, so this whole race could easily reshape itself yet again in this last 3/4 of a lap.
Longo Borghini in conversation, one presumes, with the vehicle alongside, but it's with the motorbike there, the race motorbike. But
well, that's where they're getting their checks from, remember. There's no race radios, so they're having to be passed up bits of information. What's the distance all the way through?
Well, they're about to make the junction with the three at the front, and then maybe Longo Borghini and Van der Breggen might start getting involved, because at the moment it's only Dani Rowe dragging them along here.
Well, Dani Rowe, I suspect, will want to have another attack if she possibly can. She got across to this move using one of those late ramps, the 13% climbs, only 20 seconds long, but they just offer that springboard, and at the late stages I suspect there'll be enough. So will they work together? The Dutch have got every incentive here. That's a classy pair of riders they've got. Who's going to be doing the chasing? Who's going to be doing the riding, rather? Well, that decision seems to have been made. It's Mackie who's getting to the front. Well, I beg your pardon. Van der Breggen is doing her share too.
Van der Breggen, meanwhile, the Dutch on the front of the chasing peloton as well.
Well, I'm not quite sure here whether they're just keeping a steady tempo and policing matters, or whether they're not happy with the makeup. If they weren't happy, they'd get the information passed forward to sit on and wait, and just counter anything that does go. But this actually looks like riding quite hard.
Yeah, Ellen van Dijk on the left-hand side of your screen. Looks as if she's riding at a reasonable tempo here, Chris, it must be said.
Well, maybe Longo Borghini and Dani Rowe are just too quicker finishers for them to be happy with the makeup. They've got the strength in depth, but if it's not the right riders, it's all for naught.
There's a lot of riders there hoping this comes back and that they can sprint for the line at the end.
Looks like the Dutch might have stopped riding here. Starting to police things. Yeah, again, they did this right at the start of the race, infiltrated a break, then wouldn't work. Very frustrating for the other riders who've worked so hard to make a break.
Yeah, really frustrating for Dani Rowe here, who had to dig in hard to bridge across to the initial break made by Van der Breggen and by Longo Borghini. So the gap currently is apparently 35 seconds.
Well, it's a healthy margin with just 10 Ks remaining, but it very much like the Dutch. Looks like the Dutch are chasing here to me.
It's Marianne Vos in the black helmet in second place there. Marianne Vos looking to defend her title. The most decorated female cyclist of them all, Marianne Vos. It's just great to see her racing again at something like, or something approaching her best. She'd been at the top for so long and then had to take some time out, and it's taken her a while to get back. But what a great ambassador for women's cycling Marianne Vos has been and still remains to this day. Second in London in the Classique last week. Back with the leaders now. Longo Borghini at the back. Dani Rowe there, number 51. Floortje Mackay and Anna van der Breggen in the orange of the Netherlands. And 31 there. Third in line is Aude Bieniek of France. Ellen van Dijk still on the front of this chasing peloton group. I can see Lisa Brennauer in that white jersey of Germany. She's the first German rider, tucked in behind a couple of Italians.
The kilometres just ticking down, less than 10 Ks to go now. 24 seconds is the gap we've been giving, and it's the two Dutch women that are doing the damage.
We are the leading group. You'd think Bieniek would be quite keen to keep this one going. A conversation, a brief exchange of words between Rowe and Bieniek. Mackay there on the shoulder of Dani Rowe. 21 seconds the advantage.
I think Rowe is just doing enough here, just trying to keep some pace without really nailing herself, waiting for another opportunity. She created the space here, desperately doesn't want to give away the chance. But she's carrying passengers, it must be really frustrating. Brinkmanship here.
Well, the Dutch have got so many cards to play.
Longo Borghini the same, just waiting for somebody to throw the first punch and she'll go with it. So we seem to have the Dutch working and the Dutch chasing.
The Dutch suddenly starting to work on the front of this group, because that clearly wasn't the case
Well,
5 minutes ago, was it?
They're not far behind now. I don't think it's 22 seconds anymore. If our camera just moved around.
Well, this one's going to come back together, isn't it? So we had the Dutch, as you say, Chris, on the front of both the break and the peloton moments ago. And it's Ellen van Dijk who's doing most of the chasing. But all she's doing really is bringing people like Brennauer back into it. Now we've got an attack. It looks like Van der Breggen to me, who has made an attack for the Netherlands.
Yeah,
and Elisa Longo Borghini will try and go with it. Dani Rowe hasn't got the power to go with that acceleration initially. Van der Breggen knows with the race coming back together, this is the way that she can win. She's got to go for it.
Well, Dani Rowe also has got to take some risks here, or she'll just get worked over. She's just got to sit on the other riders and say, well, you can chase this one down. And if it does come back together, she can then counter. But if she chases, she's just exposed straight away. She'll get caught on the back foot.
Well, the two riders who made the initial breakaway of these five who are at the front, Van der Breggen and Elisa Longo Borghini, are the two that have broken away again, and they're on their own here. 8.4 kilometres to go. Little climb coming up now as well.
Well, this was the point to wait to, really, rather than sitting on the front. When you get these little ramps, that's the time to have a dig, and there you go. That's how it's done. Longo Borghini stretches her legs. Not going to be enough though, but it could be to keep them away.
Tell you what though, it'll take a lot to shake off Van der Breggen. For any of these riders here, Van der Breggen glued to the back wheel of Elisa Longo Borghini. This is the first chase group now from the initial breakaway, with Dani Rowe predictably at the front of it. Thorchi Makai on the back of that group, and again it is Ellen van Dijk followed by Brennauer on the front of the main chase. Italy well represented as well if required.
Well, Longo Borghini will have a very good chance if this comes down to a sprint. So right now, 8K's out. She's just trying to force this small move to stay away, so she has the opportunity.
What I couldn't see there was quite who is still there from Italy in that main peloton, the front peloton there, whether the likes of Marta Bastianelli have been able to stay in there. Giorgia Bronzini, Cavalli, certainly Bastianelli, a fast finisher. Bronzini too at the end of a tough race.
These two really going away now. Just look at the gap behind. The three have sat up. Dani Rowe said, well, I'm not going to do the chasing. And that's what happens if you don't take fast decisions at this point in the race. It doesn't take many seconds and you're gone. And with the twists and turns on this street circuit, you're very, very quickly out of sight.
Well, just gives you an indication of the standard of these European Championships in women's road racing, because the first two riders on the road are two of the three medalists in the Olympic Games road race from Rio 2 years ago, including the winner.
Yes, Mackay happy to sit and police, and the other two are really trapped. If they chase, they'll be countered. Let's have a look behind, see what the peloton's doing. Oh, Dani Rowe worked hard to get herself that opportunity, but was just in the wrong company.
Here we are with the race leaders now looking to press home their advantage.
Rowe had a kind of 50-50 chance, really. If one of the Dutch goes, then Longo Borghini goes after it. If it comes back, then she chases the next one. That's all you could do, really. And it just fell the wrong way. Not done yet, though.
Elisa Longo Borghini on the wheel of Van der Breggen, a little bit further up the road. Van der Breggen, a previous winner of this race, European champion 2 years ago.
No shots of the peloton recently. There was a lot of attacking. Maybe they've got the news and they're much happier with this makeup. They've got a good possibility of a gold here if this stays away. A guaranteed silver. Okay, we'll take those odds and stop attacking, because I would have thought that that group of three would have been swept up by now if they'd stopped riding.
Little anxious glance over the shoulder there from Anna van der Breggen, just seeing the lie of the land, seeing how far they were ahead of the other three, and I think it's a decent advantage that they've got, provided they continue to work together.
Well, they're riding consistently, and that's the key. They've kept the pace on. Sure enough, there's the peloton just in the background there.
They're about to sweep up the other three, so it didn't work out for Dani Rowe this time, as she got time to regroup a little bit and try to remain involved at the front end of the race, with so little time between here and the finish.
So they're around Park Terrace now, and they've just started to turn for home. Making their way back through the city streets towards the green and the finish line.
Mackay checking behind. Peloton aren't far away, just out of sight, but only a matter of seconds behind. Back at the front of the race now. Well, every chance these two could contest the finish.
Yeah, they've been riding solidly, not massively overextended. They don't want to leave themselves exposed to each other on these short climbs. They want to make sure that if one attacks, you can see the chute tightening going on now. Sure sign.
Just getting ready
for
a
move
sprint.
in the offing here.
Van der Breggen getting ready for the business end of the race here now.
Longo Borghini on the previous little ramp actually semi-attacked, and I think that might have been a move to actually prevent Van der Breggen making a move. She was forced to defend rather than go on the offensive herself. But there's some more opportunities here. 35 seconds the gap.
Well, staff on the side of the road there issuing some instructions in the general direction of Longo Borghini.
They ride with each other week in, week out, don't they? They know each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, ride for different teams though, Boels Dolmans and Wiggle High Five.
So 5Ks to go. I'd be surprised if they didn't stay away now, if that gap is indeed 35 seconds.
Anna van der Breggen, the overall leader of the Women's World Tour.
We're hearing it still hovering around. These three still haven't been reeled in. And the two riders who aren't Dutch have continued to ride. What else could they do? They're sort of stuck in no man's land. Danny Rowe can get up these ramps very handily. Got a bit of a gallop as well. Still got an opportunity here. Sweeping back into town.
What a year she's had though, Van der Breggen. Strade Bianca, Tour of Flanders, Flèche Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, you name it, she's hoovered up a lot of the biggest races. Is she going to hoover up the European title as well, or can Longo Borghini take the crown? Floortje Mackay resisting as long as she possibly can.
Yeah, just countered there and forcing Italy to have to get on the front and chase. A little bit of a dangerous move because it means that she's bringing them together closer in stages to this front pair.
Haven't had a time gap for a little while.
About half a minute was the last we heard, so have been nibbled away out a bit. These two are backing off now. They're starting to think about the sprint and those ramps, checking over their shoulders to see whether they've got enough time, but they need to keep rolling through at a pace or they'll lose this opportunity that they've created for themselves. Big wide streets protected from the wind here. It's the terrain that causes the problems.
Little movement off the front of the peloton, and Danny Rowe involved in that as well.
She's still there, not giving up yet.
No. This the last of the nasty ramps on the course. It's a real...
I'm not sure this is an attack, you see. I think this is a preventative measure. If I ride up here absolutely flat out, I'm not giving you an opportunity to attack me. 13% this. 30 seconds long. They've dealt with 63 of these today, or rather, I think 61 it is at this point. Almost finished now. That was the most severe they have left to deal with.
Well, this is Marianne Vos on the attack behind. They're not that far behind, actually, and it's very, very intense, the racing here behind now. Vos having a look across. Brennauer is right behind her. She is second at the moment. Sweden had a rider up just out of our picture.
That's why she eased off straight away. She knows she either breaks the elastic immediately or she has to stop till she risks bringing these two back. And, well, the rightful wrath of her teammate, who are now 28 seconds in
Longo
the lead.
Borghini's going to attack here now. Elisa Longo Borghini, they just eased off a little bit, and she's on the attack here now. But Van der Breggen, I think, should be able to go with it. With 3 kilometres remaining here in this women's road race. The pressure being put on by the Italian, but the Olympic champion able to follow her wheel tracks.
Yeah, no real panic at the moment. Nice place to attack, though, just going into the corner. No opportunity to accelerate until you exit the bend, but she's got on top of it. Few lengths between them, but I think she has that one in control.
happy to let her think she's still got a chance, so she keeps riding with 2.7 Ks to go. Surely that's the last of the opportunities. Only a counter now, that is your only option here, or wait for the sprint.
Well, that certainly gave